Announce your name when speaking. Ensure your microphone and camera are not picking up any background noise and visual distractions. To ensure the meeting runs smoothly and the public clearly hear all speakers, we will assist by muting your microphone should you forget to do so. I also remind you that the video recording is an official record of Council and may be made available to persons upon request in accordance with the Government Information Public Access Act 2009. No other recording are permitted. I'd like to acknowledgement of country. Bayside respects the traditional custodians of the land, elders past, present, on which this meeting takes place, and acknowledges the Gadigal and Bidjigal clans of the Sydney Basin. Now, apologies. I think we've got apologies. Some councillors are at a conference, so do we have any apologies? Scott Morrissey is apology. He's part of the group here. Okay. So we've got Scott Morrissey. Are there no other apologies? Would someone move and second the apology be granted? Councillor Jansen, Councillor Sarovnovsky. Thank you. All in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried. Okay. Now, are there any okay, disclosure of interest. Sorry, disclosure of interest. I remind councillors that you should also notify the General Manager in advance of the meeting of any disclosure of interest so the Minute Secretary can prepare them on the screen. Any disclosure of interest must also be made at the meeting. Councillors, any disclosure of interest? Okay, no disclosure. That will be minuted. Now, item 4. We're on to confirmation of minutes of previous meeting. Minutes of, that's 4.1, minutes of the City Services Committee meeting that was on the 6th of April 22. Could I ask councillors who were present to move and second? Councillor Sidrak, Councillor Muscat. Thank you. All in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried. All right, I've also got item 4.2, business arising, because at our last council meeting there was a change. That the committee notes that the minutes of the City Service Committee meeting on the 6th of April were received and the recommendations therein were adopted by Council at the meeting with the exception of items numbers 11.CS 22.003 and 11.CS 22.004. Now, 5 items by exception, we've got none. Next, we'll identify the item council wish to speak on. Are there any other items you wish to pull out or to speak on? And I think anyone speaking on any of the items? No? Okay. So that's 5. 6, public forum. Do we have no speakers? I believe there are no speakers for public forum. So we will move on to reports. Now, do I have to? Do I have the reports printed on here? I don't think so. Okay, thank you. So they're not listed on here. Okay. Apologies, reports. We've got CS 22.008, Disability Inclusion Action Plan, 2022 to 2026. We have an officer's recommendation. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Jensen, moved by Councillor Saravnovsky. Any discussion, councillors? Councillor Jensen.
Through you, Chair, I'd like to say it's a great engagement report, but just had a question on the data set, and can I ask in future that in the description of the actual engagement activity that it carries the number of people that were consulted, as well as I know there's detailed information about downloads from the website, but it would be good information to actually know how many individuals participated in the surveys and what the exact data set is. Further, I have a committee recommendation for discussion that I feel as a council we can be a bit more progressive and focus on ability rather than disability. And I noticed that the recent market that we supported was called the Ability Arts Market. So I'd be proposing that we can rename the Disability Inclusion Action Plan to the All Abilities Inclusion Action Plan. I've done some research, and already City of Wagga Wagga has renamed their DAP, the All Abilities Inclusion Action Plan. So I'd like to add that as a committee recommendation to look into if possible.
So, from my understanding, you want to change the title of this report?
Yeah, so I propose we consider renaming the next version, which is the one that is about to be adopted, the All Abilities Inclusion Action Plan, if it is not against the guidelines.
Could we have a comment on that, because would that exclude the disabled?
Through you, Mr Chair, the Disability Inclusion Action Plan is a statutory requirement,
right,
and it is responding to the Disability Inclusion Act 2014. So we would actually need to go back to the department and check whether they were happy to have the name changed. I mean, yes, we're certainly supportive of all abilities as opposed to disability, but given that it is a statutory requirement, we would need to seek that endorsement. Is there anything you have
No,
to
that would
add,
be my
Bryony?
response to Deborah. Thanks.
Okay, so we will certainly do that and report back to the next
Thank
committee.
you. It would be interesting to know how City of Wagga Wagga have been able to do
that.
Yeah.
And we could get in touch with
Yeah.
them. Also, I need to note that this Disability Inclusion Action Plan needs to be provided by the 30th of June under our statutory requirements. So it will be going to Council on the 25th of May for endorsement, following recommendation of this committee. So we're not in a position to be able to hold it up at the moment. So if we can address that between now and then, we will, but we would push the report to that deadline and then look at it after council had endorsed it on the 25th of May.
So if we do endorse it on the 25th of May, the change can't happen this time round?
I think it could. We could just bring it back to council and say we've responded, and provided the department are happy to accept the change.
Sure.
Yes, but we can't not provide the report by 30 June.
Sure.
Can I comment also?
Happy with the...
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Cedro?
Thank you, Mr Chair. Look, I
we can't.
highly respect Councillor Jensen and her potential investigation of this name change. My only suggestion, and with all respect, I'm flexible either way, but and I know there's a lot of debate about changing names. I know, for example, we go from synthetic field, now we're calling it all-weather fields, and I understand all these kind of terminologies changing. I'm just weary that potentially the government disability scheme, the NDIS, these all still have the title disability, and I understand your sentiments and I respect it. If we were to change, if we could also not only look at looking at what other councils are doing, number one. Number two, maybe asking the actual disability representatives, or is there some kind of group that we could liaise with about this name change? Is this insensitive to be calling it all the all I know is I always hear the terminology disability this, disability that, disability games, disability services. So if we change these titles, are we moving away from the true essence of what this is? If we are, that's fine. If we can just find that out, that'd be great.
Thank you, Councillor.
Through
With
you,
respect-
Mr Chair, if I could
Sure.
make a comment relating to that. So, subject to departmental approval, which we
Yeah.
would have to seek, the term all abilities is actually more inclusive than disability, which just draws out one particular group. And that's the way that we're moving in terminology in community speak these days, but we would have to check that and
Sure.
get back to you.
Okay, thank
If
you.
I could also make a comment in relation to the numbers in the engagement report. I'm sorry I don't have a page number on the report in front of me, but in the engagement section of the report under the engagement summary, we have some numbers that say we received over 650 visits to the Bayside Have Your Say engagement platform. A total of 76 online surveys were completed, and the draft D-app was downloaded 100 times. So we have got some statistics that are available to us in the report, but we certainly accept Councillor Jansen's comment that it is important to know how many people we've spoken to gauge these views. So we take that on board as well.
Thank you, Ms Dawson. Councillor Soronovsky.
Mr Chairman, I just wanted to comment in relation to the report and commend the staff. I found it very interesting. It was plain, simple language where everybody could understand, and that's what I just want to thank the staff for a very good report. When it's distributed amongst the community, they'll understand and they'll be able to read the report. And I commend for you, Deborah, to the staff. Well done. It's a very good report.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor Soronovsky. Any other discussion, councillors? If not, we're on CS 22008, Disability Inclusion Action Plan 2022-26, moved by Councillor Jansen, seconded by Councillor Soronovsky. All in favour, say aye.
Aye.
Declare it carried. Thank you, councillors. Now we're on item CS 22009, Age-Friendly Communities Strategy 22-26. Mover and seconder. Moved by Councillor Jansen, seconded by Councillor Muscat. Any discussion, councillors? Councillor Jansen.
Just a similar comment again to the last one in terms of the data set. I believe that's available, but it would be good to include that in the extensive detail of the engagement report because it's very interesting information. And I can see that this has got a positive name, much like all abilities would be. So age-friendly, it's moved on from seniors or oldies, Councillor Cedric. So I do take your points on board too.
Thank you, Councillor Jansen. Good point. Any other discussion, Councillor? Councillor Cedric.
I'm considered an oldie now, apparently. Anyway, yeah, no, I'm with you. I totally agree. Can I just commend also not only the report, but also there's certain groups that I've worked with, and that's the Ramsgate, they're called senior citizens.
item. We're on to item CS 22010, comparison of sporting field closures. Okay, sure. Okay, can we have a mover and seconder for Councillor Warner to join us online? Councillor Jansen, moved by Councillor Jansen, seconded by Councillor Muscat. Do we have Councillor Warner online now? Can you hear me, Councillor Warner? Just.
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me, Councillor Warner?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Sorry, the internet's not very good where I am at the moment, so I apologise for that.
That's okay.
Are we on the item about the report to do with the field closures?
Yeah, I'm just about to get onto that item, so bear with me. We're on item CS 22.010, comparison of sporting field closures. Now, we have an officer's recommendation. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Jansen, seconded by Councillor Naji. Now, sorry, you didn't second it? Okay. Paul, sorry, Councillor Cedric. Now, Councillor Warner, this item was moved by Councillor Jansen, seconded by Councillor Cedric. I just wanted to, before it is to do with sporting fields, are you actually addressing the item as far as the comparison between councils as far as the weather, or?
Yes, I just wanted to say that I think the report seems to have a very good methodology and wanted to commend staff for doing the report, and just wanted to make some more comments. So is that okay?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, I think it is really good to know, for the community to know what the criteria for closure are. So I think that's really great, and it's good for council to have that transparency. And so yeah, thank you very much to the staff for doing this report. I think it would also be good to get reports about other sort of reasons for closing the fields, and I wonder if council could prepare a report for other weather events that might cause field closures, such as wind or heat, or any other kind of weather events. So I was hoping that would be possible. Maybe through the chair, if I could ask the relevant director.
I'll get Ms Dawson, Director of City Life, to maybe make a comment on that.
Thank you.
Yes, we were specifically asked to talk about wet weather in this report, which we have addressed. As far as other weather conditions are concerned, I would note that we've never had to close a field for any other reason, and I have my Acting Manager of Sport and Recreation shaking his head and agreeing, Councillor Werner. So that has never occurred in Bayside. So very low incidence. I know that you're probably referring to heat issues relating to synthetic fields. We don't have the information that we require yet. We're waiting on the production of a state government report with recommendations, and when that report is received, we will examine that closely. So perhaps at that time, we would be more in a position to have a discussion around those matters.
Thank you, Dawson. Does that answer your question, Councillor Warner?
It does. Thank you very much for that. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your input. Now, I have a question about if the Director of City Life, please give us a bit of an update, like a brief update on the community consultation of Gardner Park.
Yes, certainly, Mr Chair. As part of the Gardner Park Banksia redevelopment, we undertook last July to develop a community consultation group for ongoing management and to look at constructive plans for future community use and enhancements for Gardner Park. That the development of that group was put on hold for a period of time, but we are now in a position to prepare an expression of interest, which we've done. So this is for the committee just to note. There's no action for the committee at this point, other than to say that we will be calling on representatives from all areas of the community, including interested local residents, park users, representatives of local sporting groups, Bayside councillors and senior staff to participate in that committee, which will
area of all the properties that back onto Gardner's Park, but I think my suggestion would be
Yep.
let the council adopt the terms of reference, set the period, and how many people we're going to have on the committee, because and the other thing I wanted to say was, who's actually going to be the chairman? Will it be you, Mr. Councillor Wada, on it? That's
I guess, sorry, to the director, is that something that would come to council meeting with the terms of reference?
through you, Mr Chair, either that or back to the next committee meeting, which is in 1 month's time. It's only just over a week on from the next council meeting, so it would probably be better for a discussion at this committee and for endorsement at the following
Sure.
council
I mean,
meeting.
from what Councillor Saranovsky, the point that Councillor Saranovsky has made, do you think holding back on the from next Monday is it an idea to hold back until the,
I know that the community is very anxious to meet about these matters, that the only issue would be that we'd be holding back for another month.
but is it sorry, Councillor Jason, but will it be, do you think it would matter if we do put this out next Monday and then have the terms of reference at our next meeting?
I do believe that we can put this out with enough information to get people to apply to be a part of the group while we develop the terms of reference.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jensen?
Through you, Chair, just a quick question. Is this a reference group that's kind of unique to this particular park, or has this kind of consultation occurred in the past around park sites?
Through you, Mr Chair, we have had groups for consultation previously, probably not as extensive as what this one will be. There has been a lot of community interest in Gardner Park, and we're very keen to work with the community for a future outcome that satisfies all parties.
Thank you. Councillor Muscat?
I just want to go back, Chair, through to the sporting field closures. I'd like to commend the social media group on letting the public know via Facebook all the different things that are happening. I think it would be a good thing to include the criteria for closing fields so that parents are aware that we're not just doing it for the sake of doing it, but there's safety issues as well as the maintenance and care of the grounds. So we're consolidating all aspects and not just council interests. But I've had great feedback from the public about how they're finding the social media updates really inspiring, and I think that would top all those concerns about why the parks are being closed for sporting events and things. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Councillor Muscat. Councillor Sidro?
Thank you, Mr Chair. Yeah, I'd also like to commend Mr Ross, the Coordinator for Sport and Rec. Personally, I see he's done an amazing job, and this is another positive outcome.
And Tracy.
And Tracy, sorry, I've dealt with Gavin myself, sorry. Thank you, Jay. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Councillor. In regards to, I think it's really important, though, to come back to Councillor Savranowski's point. This term of reference, if we don't have finite aims and objectives of what we're trying to achieve, what we're going to find, and I know this is such a contentious issue, Gardner Park, we're going to find this drags on and on and on and on about the debate for and against Gardner Park, for and against synthetic. So we really need to be clear that council's not toying with people and putting these potential, working groups about whether the park is staying, whether it's going, synthetic versus non-synthetic. I think it's got to be really clear. Number two, and number three, through you, Mr Chair, if we could also invite the sporting facilities and clubs that participate at that park, such as Banksia Tigers. I'm not aware of any others. Are there any others, councillors? If there are, if we could also invite them to these committees. And I think we also, like Councillor Savranowski said, we can't have a committee working group with 100 people. There must be a number that's reasonable. They might have to sit around a table or what have you. And it's got to have aims and objectives. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Look, I think from what the Director was saying, if you have a look at this leaflet, I mean, it does say the press is required to respond to each of the following questions: name, address, email, particular area of interest, your relationship to and use of the park, what you can bring to the group. So that doesn't restrict us really from putting that out and then do the terms of reference, because that's not really holding. There's no actual indication about terms of reference, which we could put out later, which will be ready in 4 weeks' time, we hope. All right, if any other discussion, if not, we on to item CS 22010, comparison of sporting field closures. We have a mover, Councillor Jansen, seconded by Councillor Mascot. All in favour, please say aye. Against, declare it carried. Councillors, that brings us to the end of the reports, and we don't have a closed session, so I declare there being no further item, I declare meeting closed at 7:11. Thank you. Thank you all.
Okay. I declare the April meeting of the 4th of May 2022. Sorry? We're still not on. Okay.
Online?
Still waiting. Okay. I declare the April meeting of the 4th of May 2022 Corporate Performance Committee open at, just check the time, 7:23 p.m. Okay. Everyone at this meeting is reminded to conduct themselves in a polite and professional manner. Keep communication factual, use appropriate language and tone. Do not use any defamatory or derogatory remarks. I also ask councillors to observe the requirements under the Code of Meeting Practice and Meeting Etiquette, including debate on an item will commence only once we have a mover and a seconder for the item. The mover of the recommendation motion has first right to speak on the item. The mover has a right of reply before the recommendation motion is put to a vote. Raise your hand to indicate you wish to speak, as I will determine the speaking order based on the hands I see. Please indicate whether you are speaking for or against the item. You can speak for up to 5 minutes on a motion and a similar time for any amendment. For the efficient conduct of this meeting, it is not necessary for you to repeat the matters you agree with and raised by any previous speaker. It is sufficient for you to say that you agree with the points raised. I also remind you that the video recording is an official record of Council and may be made available to persons upon request in accordance with the Government Information Public Access Act 2009. No other recordings are permitted. Bayside Council respects the traditional custodians of the land, elders past and present, on which this meeting takes place, and acknowledges the Gadigal and Bidjigal clans of the Sydney Basin. Now we'll move to apologies. I have apologies from Mayor Christina Curry, Councillor Scott Morrissey, Councillor Greta Werner, Councillor Andrew Souness. Are there any other apologies? Would someone like to move?
Confirmation that Councillor Werner, was she on before? She's not
Yes,
on there?
I believe Councillor Werner is not coming on. Yep. Would someone like to move and second that the apologies be granted? Moved by Councillor Muscat. I was going to ask if anyone's going to be online, but I've just been told that Councillor Werner isn't and there are no speakers, so we'll move past that. Disclosures of interest. I remind councillors that you should also notify the General Manager in advance of any meeting of any disclosures of interest so the Minutes Secretary can prepare them on the screen. Any disclosures of interest must also be made at the meeting. Are there any councillors who wish to disclose an interest? Councillor Muscat?
Yes, I'd like to declare a significant non-pecuniary interest in the Botany Aquatic Centre, as I am currently the President of Botany RSL Amateur Swimming Club, a group of volunteers, but I will be staying within the meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Muscat. The disclosure will be noted in the minutes. Any further disclosures? Okay. Confirmation of the previous minutes. Minutes of the Corporate Performance Committee meeting on the 6th of April 2022. Can I ask two councillors who were present at the meeting to move and second the confirmation of the minutes? Councillor Nagy and Councillor Cedric. Thank you. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
I declare the minutes confirmed. There is business arising from those minutes, and I'll read this out. That the committee notes that the minutes of the Corporate Performance Committee meeting of the 6th of April were received and the recommendations therein were adopted by the Council at its meeting, with the exception of item number 11, CP 22004, Councillor Superannuation. We have no speakers for the public forum, so we'll now move on to the reports. So we have CP 22006, Tender Botany Aquatic Centre, Stage 1. Do I have a mover and a seconder?
I'll move it.
Councillor Nagy and Councillor Jansen. Okay. Any discussion?
Through you, Chair, do we need to move into confidential session to be able to ask any questions?
No, we have Louise Farrell from Major City Projects who's actually going to talk to us about this item. And unless we have questions about the reports, we won't need to move into a confidential session.
I'm happy to give you an overview, and then
Thank
if
you.
there are any questions, we can go from there. So Botany Aquatic Centre is included in our current City Projects program, and we have it in two stages, being stage one, the adventure water play and water slides, which is what's coming up at the committee report tonight. Council endorsed to proceed with the adventure water play component in October of 2020. And this component is construction of 3 new water slides, an outdoor adventure water play for the children, a new substation to power this facility, as well as plant room and associated plant equipment that will extend the life of the existing facility. In June 2021, we ran an expression of interest and we received 6 submissions, and then we shortlisted to 5 contractors, and we've gone back to those 5 through a select tender process. One of them declined to submit during that process due to other commitments and them unable to give the time to this project. So the report details our submissions, which are from Belmadar, FDC Contracting, Lloyd Group and Patterson Group. So that's all public knowledge and on the record. And we've gone through an assessment criteria and assessed those not only on their price, but on the program, the methodology that they will undertake to deliver the project. And the recommended tenderer is Belmadar for the lump sum of $7,892,955. Now, they produced a very good submission in terms of it met all of Council's criteria, and we saw no reason to pass that tender in.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
I just had a question. I'm in support of the officer recommendation, but I noticed that, just to comment on the completion time frame, because that is during the swim season. So how will that be managed in terms with the construction as well as the pool being open?
So all of the works that require a shutdown to power or water need to occur while the pool is closed before that September reopening. Access would be via the rear of the property, so we'd come through the open space and have a fenced off section so the rest of the pool complex can reopen at that September school holidays, and swim school and everything else that goes with it can go ahead. We will be taking up a portion for a construction site and the associated works with shipping containers and things like that, but we're confident that we can still run the pool with its full suite of what it currently offers, and all of the make good to the outdoor area as driving trucks and things like that across that grassed area. That is all included in this tender price. We know that that's a really valuable asset to the community, that open space, and we've put in some very strict guidelines in terms of that work.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay. Yes. Yes.
Sorry,
Councillor
Madam Chair.
Cedric, yep.
Just a question in regards to these tenders. I'm assuming they all have, and I'm reading through the
Production, correct, yes. So that's why we went through an expression of interest to make sure that the type of works, because we're dealing with like the water slides, they're very specialist. So they all 4 of them that submitted have extensive experience.
Sure.
Thank you.
And just with that, sorry, again, through you again, with that final price there, how did that rank compared to the others?
Would have to go into confidential session if I was to compare the prices.
Okay.
You do have that information in the confidential attachment listing the prices,
Okay.
but I can't speak about that in the open forum, I'm sorry.
Yes, I read through the reports and the rankings are there. Yeah.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Okay,
Thank you.
moved by Councillor Minardi, seconded by Councillor Jansen. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Passed. Okay, the second motion. Tender, CP 22007, tender lighting of Kaima Boat Ramp Reserve Car Park. Have a mover and a seconder again. Councillor Jansen, Councillor Sedrak. Any discussion? Can we ask Louise Farrell to talk to us again?
Absolutely. So council was successful in a New South Wales Boating Now grant in late 2020 for $180,000. The requirements of that grant were that we matched it 50-50, and we have that funding through our infrastructure levy. Community consultation was undertaken around the time that the grant was going in, and a lot of the local residents were asking for increased lighting in the Kaima car park with some antisocial behaviour and safety concerns. So council invited open tenders in early March and closed the tender on the 30th of March. We received 6 submissions. All of the submissions, the submissions required a certain level of Ausgrid approval to undertake this lighting, and all of the submissions had those certifications and experience. So based on the assessment, we are proposing to award Havencord Proprietary Limited for an amount of $293,600. And once approved, construction could commence as early as June, and it's only around 4 weeks on site to undertake the works.
Could I ask a question? I may have missed it in the report, but I noted that it said that presently that area is closed at night because of the antisocial behaviour. Will it then be reopened at night once the new lights go in?
That would need to come back to council for a
Okay.
resolution because it was closed due to complaints, but that is the thought that it could be reopened for
Okay.
people. People were using it in the early morning for fishing, which is a legitimate
Yes,
reason,
of
but
course.
it was just in the evening we were having some of the antisocial behaviour, so that would certainly be something we could bring back
Okay,
once the
thank
lights
you.
are in place.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, Councillor Jansen and Councillor Sedrak. All those in favour say aye. Aye. The motion is passed. There being no further items, there's a very brief meeting tonight. So the meeting has closed out. I can't quite read the time. 7:36. 7:36. Thank you.